On today's show, the NBA schedule is here. Which games from opening week will tell us the most about some potential contenders? Plus, when will Klay Thompson return to the Bay Area? And which teams didn't get enough games on national TV? All of that and more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA Friday. Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mares. However you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. The NBA released the schedule on Thursday afternoon. There's a ton of stuff to get into, but let's just jump right into opening week. I've got 6 games from opening week here, and I want to know which one to you, Adam, you think is going to tell us the most about the teams involved. So 6 games here.
Okay.
First one is the very first game of the season. October 22nd, ring night, Knicks at Celtics. Then we have the late game, Minnesota at the Lakers. The other games I want to ask you about, the next night, October 23rd, Phoenix at the LA Clippers. The reveal of the Intuit Dome. First time we get to see that that stadium with all their toilets. We got October 24th, San Antonio at Dallas. We've got Oklahoma City at Denver that same night. We also have Milwaukee at Philadelphia, and then October 25th, Phoenix at the Lakers. So I know I just threw a lot at you there, but which one of those games stands out to you as maybe the one that could be most instructive for us on opening week?
Milwaukee at Philadelphia is the one that jumped out to me the most. And I think Phoenix and the Clippers was a close second. That's also a great game. But in both of those two matchups, both teams are there's something to be revealed in a meaningful way. I mean, all of these games, it's the start of the year.
Sure.
Everyone's a little different. You get a first look at them. But Philadelphia is most different. Obviously, adding Paul George changes the team. All of the role players that they've brought in changes the team. And Milwaukee is a team that are we throwing away last year? Is that an anomaly? Really, the last 2? Are we throwing it away and just saying, that's not who they are? They're going to be something different. That game, like if you have a blowout in either direction, the takes will come right away. Opening night number 1, the takes are going to arrive. If you have a close game, maybe not as much, but that's the one. Both teams, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, both teams sort of on the clock.
I agree 100% with you. That's the one I have circled. October 23rd, Milwaukee at Philadelphia. I think Paul George does a great job of fitting in with other superstars, right? We've seen him fit in with Kawhi Leonard. We've seen him fit in with Russell Westbrook. I think it might be an underrated part of his game overall. I also don't think it's going to be seamless for him with Philadelphia, because you could argue the exact opposite with Joel Embiid. As great of a player he is, he's not the easiest guy to play with. We just saw this with Team USA, although that's a little bit more of an extreme example. But it takes guys that he's played with a long time to figure out how to fit with him. So it's kind of like an interesting mix of a guy who fits really well with most players in Paul George, and another one who does not necessarily make that the easiest thing with Joel Embiid. And then obviously you have the Tyrese Maxey factor in there. He's trying to make maybe another leap here going into his second season in terms of a lead guy for the Sixers. So we're going to learn a lot about what it is that Philadelphia looks like. They also have more depth and all these things. Nick Nurse's second year there. I'm actually more interested to see Milwaukee in this game than I am even sort of the first night of Paul George with the Sixers, because if I had to bet, I think it would be I think last year was a gap year. I think last year was a little bit of a lost season. If you think, yes, getting Damian Lillard, being the team that stole Damian Lillard out of nowhere is a win, right? That's a W. Yeah. Even considering when you lose Drew Holiday and all these things, it was still the right trade to be made, but it was also the worst time to make that kind of trade, which was basically right before training camp started in October for that team. And so they didn't really get a real ramp up there. They also fired their coach, hired Doc Rivers. They went through 3 different coaches in 9 months, basically. All those things were happening. They dealt with injury issues up and down the roster. It was not a deep team by any means. It just felt like the season from hell for them in a lot of ways. And it just feels like it has to be better. Plus, Milwaukee kind of quietly made some really interesting moves. Gary Trent, some of these other guys that they added. I kind of like some of the role player upgrades that they made on that roster. I'm kind of in on the Bucks. I feel like they're overlooked, and they're not viewed as like they're viewed as maybe like a non-serious team. I think they're an extremely serious team, and I think on opening night they're going to want to show that.
Opening night will bring the takes for that very reason. So I'm with you on all that stuff you said. They're interesting. You've been listening to Doc Rivers, who was adamant that that's why they were bad. No training camp for all these different things. We'll find out. I think the Intuit Dome one is actually interesting because one, all right, you have a new coach for Phoenix. That's a big deal. Completely different identity. I think you have a more well-rounded roster. There's a chance they look great on opening night. When you go over to the Clippers, things don't feel as good for the Clippers. Are they better than last year? They're certainly different. Are they better? I don't know. You're opening up a new arena. That one to me is another one that I could see being a blowout in either direction, but I could see it being a close game. But it'll be one that I don't know how those teams are going to look.
Among the new things in that game, so ESPN is broadcasting that one. I am expecting a lot of B-roll kind of takeaways of the Intuit Dome while that game is going on. I'm sure they'll have something going on with the toilets, with the Steve Ballmer's crazy quote about how many toilets they have. They have this thing that's supposed to rival like a college football stadium. They're calling it the Wall or something, where it's on
Right.
one behind one basket, it's like super elevated and it kind of it's steeper, so kind of your fans like are hovering over the court, which is kind of a cool concept. So of the new things involved in this game, are you more interested in the Intuit Dome B-roll and cutaways, Tyus Jones on Phoenix, or Mike Budenholzer in Phoenix?
Mike Budenholzer, I will tell you that you have brought up Intuit Dome now twice. I'm already over it. So I've not heard anything else about it all summer, but hearing that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be tired of this. But no, in all seriousness, Budenholzer is completely different from Vogel, completely different from what they've had. And look, man, Phoenix, it's either their year or their year to make a change. And I'm kind of betting on them to have a pretty surprisingly great year. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, but given how the last couple of years ago, I think they're going to be pretty good this year, and opening night's a good way to start that.
I think the way they're viewed, they're a little bit Milwaukee Bucks West, right? Where,
Kind of.
we see all the talent here, but we don't take them seriously. Mike Budenholzer is a regular season wins machine. That guy wins 50 games every regular season. And Phoenix was not that far away from 50 wins last year either. There's a lot of talent, obviously, on that roster. I think Budenholzer is a great hire for them. I think he's the perfect coach to kind of get them. What he's really great at is just getting them into spots, creating an identity and saying, we're going to play this way. And that is going to be unwavering. It's also, by the way, the thing that got him fired from that Milwaukee Bucks job to a point. But there's the point for him, at least establishing something that Phoenix didn't have, which just felt like an identity. I think that's huge. I think we're going to see the benefits of that right away from the jump. And so I agree with you. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what this Suns team looks like and just how different it is that they play. Does Devin Booker build off of this Team USA experience and do all the little things like the role player things that he kind of needed to do for this Phoenix Suns roster, that somebody at least needed to do for this Suns roster? One of the stars had to do it. They couldn't just ask Royce O'Neal to do everything. Like they need one of those stars to kind of step up in that way. So it'll be interesting to see how Booker builds on that too.
You didn't even mention a revenge game for Mason Plumlee, which is, we got to get all storylines.
Yeah, in the Intuit Dome, by the way, is where that's happening. That's happening there. Can I throw Oklahoma City at Denver at you really quick?
That was going to be my third one, so I'm glad you did. Very interesting game. Obviously, the new pieces at Oklahoma City, but you also have a Westbrook OKC. It's like he makes his debut in Denver against the team you remember him for. The Westbrook's debut at Denver alone is just so interesting and strange.
Yes.
And on top of that, there's a real chance those are the two best teams in the Western Conference, Denver and Oklahoma City. So it's a really good one. I think it'll be a great game.
The Jamal Murray thing, you and I have talked about it before. Not a great playoffs for him. Maybe even a worse Olympics for him. This is going to be his first game, and it's against the Thunder, who could have the best defense in the NBA next year, right? You already had one of the best 5 defenses in the league last year. You add Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso to the mix. Yeah, that could be the best defense in the league. And now you got Alex Caruso chasing Jamal Murray, making his life difficult that whole time. It's going to be a test for Murray, right? To see whether or not he can kind of break out of this slump or whatever it is. And then, we get to see those new pieces for the Thunder play as well. The Russell Westbrook factor is not one that I had even considered. That's a great B storyline for this whole game because we'll have all the he's not going to start and we'll have all the A storylines for this thing too. But seeing the Thunder, I think there's still a little bit of pressure on them to kind of do what it is that they did last year or even build on it, right? Because it was just one great year from the Thunder. You kind of need to show it a little bit more than just 1 year, obviously. And for Denver, there's a little bit of pressure on them too to kind of get back to where it is that they were, obviously winning the championship 2 years ago. So Great games all throughout that opening week. We're excited for it. But as the schedule goes on, how long will Bay Area fans have to wait until they get to see Klay Thompson back at Chase Center? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer you get to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. With last-minute deals, you save up to 60% when buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other events in your area. And GameTime offers all-in pricing. Toggling this feature on shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And with seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with their lowest price guarantee. If there's a lower price, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. And with GameTime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. The best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast app. Before we get to the biggest postseason rematches on the schedule and then kind of go over which teams didn't get enough national TV exposure and maybe which teams got a little bit too much, we've got two big reunions on the schedule. November 6th, Philadelphia at the Clippers. Do you know where they're playing, Adam?
Intuit Dome?
You may have heard. Paul George going back to play the Clippers for the first time since he left. And then January 12th, we've got Dallas at Golden State. And, of course, that is when Klay Thompson returns to the Bay Area to play the Warriors. I'm going to get you a free ticket, Adam. Hypothetically, of course. I'm going to get you a free ticket. Travel's paid. You don't have to worry about room and board. Rental car is ready to get picked up at the airport. Everything's taken care of.
By the wall or whatever it is? I can... Yeah, or my own private toilet? Is this what you're telling me?
Your own private toilet. Adam Mata's official toilet. Which one of these games are you going to?
So say them again. You have the Paul George reunion or their turn. I don't know. I don't know if I'm into that.
What's Paul George reunion or the Klay Thompson reunion?
Klay Thompson, for sure. No question about it. And that one actually is emotional. You know, we get like, is Paul George's return to the Clippers going to be emotional? I don't know.
No.
Klay Thompson, though, we're talking about one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history, kind of a tough breakup, you know, and on top of that, it was November 17th. Is that the date? I think it's somewhere like that, mid-November. It's just enough time that we'll one of those teams will have a little momentum. Not enough, but it's possible that Golden State is struggling. It's possible that Dallas is doing well or vice versa. And so I think it's early enough in the year to still have like a ton of emotion, but deep enough in the year that there's some storylines emerging.
The cool part about both of these games is I think most people would argue the team with the player that is returning is the better team in both circumstances. Philadelphia is better than the Clippers. The Mavericks are better than the Warriors. So it's not only a chance for the reunion, it's also a chance for revenge for both of these players, right? And Paul George has some motivation, right? He's going to be like, oh, you didn't want to give me the max 4 years, and Philadelphia did. Well, let me show you why they did, right? And so Paul George is going to have a little bit of motivation there. And plus, it's him versus Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi plays in that game, who knows? But the answer is Klay Thompson. This is the biggest. It's not just the biggest reunion out of the two that I'm providing here. It is one of the biggest games of the season for so many reasons, right? Because of all the things that you just said, the history of Klay Thompson in the Bay Area, in that uniform, going back to that arena where it is so important that they won in 2022 at Chase Center also, because had they not won, this would not be Klay Thompson returning to Oracle in Oakland, right? It wouldn't have been the same thing. It would have been just a little bit different. It was like when Kevin Durant went back and played the Warriors for the first time. He had never played at Chase Center, so it didn't have the same weight. It didn't carry that same way. And so when Klay Thompson goes back, he's like, oh, no, I won a championship here. I raised a banner in this building. And Klay Thompson talked a lot about how last season, he's used the word miserable, disappointing, the way last season played out. And so if Klay, and he was like, the vibes were just bad with Klay all year long for a lot of different reasons. And I think most people expect the vibes to be pretty good for Klay Thompson in Dallas. At least they have been so far. And if he's just getting shots off of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and all these things, there's going to be so much motivation for Klay to go into Chase Center and pour in like 10 3-pointers in front of Steph. That's going to be a wild game. It's going to be a crazy game. It's must-see TV.
And truly emotional, honestly.
Yes.
I think there's going to be some tears in that one. So
It'll
be interesting.
They hire to do the tribute video. They got to get like Scorsese on that. It could be
real.
an all-timer.
Make it something special.
Joe Lacob's got the money.
Does.
Of the postseason rematches, I've got 2 of them for you here that stood out to me when I'm looking at the schedule. November 1st, your Denver Nuggets against the Minnesota Timberwolves. January 25th, we've got our NBA Finals rematch, Boston at Dallas. Which one of those stand out to you the most?
I mean, come on. It's easily Denver, Minnesota. I think so. Denver, Minnesota plays each other 4 times this year. They are all on national television, and I don't believe there's anybody on a back-to-back. Or there's, I think, a front end of back-to-back, but not the back end of a back-to-back. I think that they have the NBA this year. One of the things I like about the schedule is I think that they understand where the rivalries are or where they could be, where they're close to becoming, and they're trying to cultivate that. Look, Dallas and Boston, I don't know if that's a rivalry. They happen to me. Is Denver, Miami a rivalry? They met in the playoffs for a 5-game series as well. Like it's not necessarily a rivalry, but Denver, Minnesota is a divisional rivalry. That was a very contentious series, and I think there's real bad blood there between the two teams. So cultivating that throughout this upcoming season is going to be great, and I'm excited for it.
No question. The other weird thing about Dallas and Boston, yes, it's a finals rematch, but neither team comes back changed that much, other than Dallas obviously getting Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson helps, but it doesn't really change the identity of what they do, if you know what I mean. And so I kind of know what I'm going to expect, especially by then in the schedule. I'm like, yeah, January 25th. I've seen what Klay Thompson does to Dallas. I know what the Boston Celtics already are. There's not a whole lot of drama there. Whereas, to your point, Minnesota, Denver, it feels like those teams don't like each other. And Minnesota is literally built, and it's a point you've brought up many times, Adam. Minnesota is built to beat Denver. And sort of just that, even like the rivalries stemming from the front office down is so interesting. And plus you have the best player on earth in Nikola Jokic versus sort of the ascending face of the NBA in Anthony Edwards. There's so many reasons why this is all 4 of these games are must-watch games. Like they just are. You look at the schedule, and I think you and I probably do the same thing. Maybe not yet, but as we're kind of going through this, you start going through. I go through every month. Before every month, I say, okay, which games am I circling? And especially if it's like a Friday or a Saturday night. All right, which nights am I telling the wife, like, don't make plans? These games are really important, right? And every single one of these Minnesota and Denver games are going to be circled for the rest of the season.
It's going to be great. I think it'll be one of the great rivalries of this upcoming season, to be honest with you. I mean, it has the star talent and the bad blood.
It does. Which team's got too few national TV games? Which team's got too many national TV games? This is always a fun debate. We're going to do it next year on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. I'm on FanDuel.com right now. I'm looking at Defensive Player of the Year odds, Adam.
Are you?
I am. Victor Wembanyama, minus 190. I know we've already given him the award. I know that's already happened. I think we've given him an award at some point. I'm not sure that he's going to get it this coming year. I think once he starts winning the Defensive Player of the Year awards, he's going to probably string together 3 or 4 in a row. I'm not sure it's going to start this season because you look across the whole Spurs roster, is that defense going to be good enough to warrant one of the players winning Defensive Player of the Year?
Probably
I don't
not.
know. I could short Victor Wembanyama, so then I look after him. Rudy Gobert, plus 1,200. Chet Holmgren, plus 1,500. Bam Adebayo, plus 2,000. Jaren Jackson Jr., plus 2,000. Anthony Davis, plus 2,500. Those are kind of the top guys there. I don't see Gobert winning another one. I think we're kind of collectively as a media group decided that he's not winning another one, is my sense. I like Chet Holmgren at plus 1,500. I'll go back to my point earlier. If Oklahoma City can be the number 1 rated defense in the league, they're going to have a real case. And you can get Chet now at plus 1,500. That seems like really good value for Defensive Player of the Year. What do you think?
feels more like a sucker bet to me. Like I don't see
You
it
think
happen. It
it's
doesn't
Wemby?
feel like tantalizing because the number is good. But then if you tell me does it happen, I'm like, no, it doesn't happen though.
It's going to Wemby.
I mean, I look. You made a good case though. You made a good case about the team's like. Can you win Defensive Player of the Year if your team is 20th in defensive rating? It's a good
It's
question.
tough. Even 15th. Feels like you got to be top 5.
Yeah. Feels weird.
You can make your decision. Head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. It's Friday, which means it's time to count down to the weekend with our weekly power rankings.
Assistant player. I am assistant player.
Go power rankings. Go power rankings.
Adam, how are we counting down to the weekend?
We are looking at the schedule and nationally televised games, which is really the league's decision on how they're going to market themselves. And we're determining who has too many or too few games. Whose national television total number is most off of the mark.
All right, let's get started.
We have something of a first ever. No honorable mentions and really no fifth option, Wes. I have one here, but I don't really actually think it's the perfect number, but I had to put something. And as I go through, let me just say this. I go through the number of nationally televised games. The NBA gave everyone a national televised game this year. That's not the case. Famously, Indiana did not have one last year. Right. So this year, everybody gets at least one. And I'm surprised at how many teams like the Clippers are down at 9. The NBA clearly has said you've lost your national television trust. We don't trust that you guys are going to play. So they've lowered some of these teams. And I actually think it's a pretty good balance. But that being said, number 5 to me was the Houston Rockets. They have 3 nationally televised games. I actually think they're an interesting team, but this is kind of a hipster pick. I think they're interesting. Does the casual fan think they're interesting? Probably not. So 3 is probably right, even though it feels a little low.
3's probably right. We tend to give the teams the national TV games after the fact, right? Like we're not to your point, like the NBA does decide who they want to market, but they're not going to jump the gun usually. They'll kind of wait for the market to tell them who they like and to demand who they like. But Houston having 3, it does feel like it should still be more, right? This is a team with a lot of high draft picks. Jalen Green, Reed Shepherd, obviously this time. Alperen Sengun could be an all-star this year. He could be all NBA for as good as people think he could.
Well, he's out. Is he going to be out? Is he going to miss the entire year? I mean, he's probably he might miss too much of it, but they have so much depth that they have enough players that are going to play. So
right.
To me, they're interesting. They're also a team that might make a trade midseason.
To me, you got Sacramento. I don't know if you're about to talk about them, but you got Sacramento at 6 games. You got Houston at 3. They're they're about as watchable. Like they're the same watchability to me.
Well, it's funny you say that because number 4 for me was Sacramento.
Oh, let's go.
The Kings at just 6. Sacramento plays a fun style of basketball. They have interesting players. They add DeMar DeRozan, which I think is going to be kind of fascinating. They always have a great crowd, which you hate when they're on a national televised game and the crowd's dead and you're just it almost lowers it. That crowd is always going.
Such a good point.
I don't know if they should have had a ton. I think they were more like deserved 9. 6 just feels a little low for them.
Put the Sacramento Kings on national TV more. I don't know. Is that less than what they got last year? I'm sure you don't know off the top of your head, but
feels like it.
It Light the Beam, that whole campaign really pushed them. I felt like I saw a lot of Sacramento Kings games. I have a hard time delineating when I'm watching NBA League Pass and when I'm watching national TV, but I do stay up for a lot of Kings games because they are so much fun to watch. And I don't even know if that counts as a hipster pick anymore, right? Like De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, these are all NBA caliber guys. These are guys with MVP votes. Why are they not getting that respect? And the point you made about the crowd is such a great one, and that has been the best crowd in basketball for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. Number 3, the LA Lakers.
Let's go.
29 games. I mean, look, we do this every year. It's not nearly enough. They should have at least
James.
80 games.
Have you heard of him?
Look, it's not a surprise. What are we doing? They get the marquee opening night. They get every marquee game they're on. They're on non-marquee nights. They somehow have every game on national television. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it. But here's a real question, though, Wes. Does the casual fan care at all about the Bronny James storyline? Is that something people care about? Is that you think so?
I would say the casual fan cares more about the Bronny James storyline than even NBA nerds like you and I. I think you and I care so little about the Bronny James thing. Even though I will say, I think it's gonna be very cool when they're first on the court together. Like that is gonna be a moment that I want to see as it's happening. But I get asked by casual fans even in my life, and I don't even cover the Lakers. Like, is Bronny James good? Like, what's that gonna be? Is him and LeBron really gonna play? Like, what's that all about? I think casual fans are really drawn to it.
Well, consider me educated now. I'm not interested.
No, me neither.
Number 2, the Orlando Magic.
Okay.
Now, this is my squad. They only have 5 games. They play a good brand of basketball. Paolo Banchero is really good. They've got some interesting pieces. They're going to be fun. They're going to be meaningful. They're going to be a playoff storyline, but nobody's going to have seen them until they get to the playoffs. The NBA, in my opinion, the Orlando Magic are the exact team that the NBA is bad at identifying early. They're always late to the show. They're a good team, and they play a good style of basketball. They don't need a ton, but I thought they could have had 8 or 9. Like, just double it a little bit so we're familiar when they're in the second round of the playoffs this year, which they will be.
I don't disagree with you on that. We should be more like, if you're just a good team, it shouldn't matter how you play. It's okay. Like, if you're going to be in the playoffs, we should be familiar with you a little bit more than we usually. Like with the Pacers, famously, nobody watched them and they were in the playoffs and you're like, wow, this team. But the Magic were 27th in pace last year, 22nd in offensive rating. When you say that they have a good brand of basketball, they do. They're fun to watch for NBA dorks like you and I who love good defense and well-coached teams.
What was the list
on
I
the
was
rise.
making? Was that not the list? Hold on a second.
Wrong list.
Oh, I made the wrong one, bad.
That's so, but no, like 5. Okay, you could kind of go up to, I don't know, 5 feels about right to me.
What a hater. Speaking of haters, number 1, the Washington Wizards.
Oh, number 1.
Number 1.
That's how many national TV games they
because
have.
they only have 1 game. Way too many. Way too many games. Washington is a national televised game. I get what the NBA is trying to do, but you could have left them off.
So they are playing the Phoenix Suns on a Thursday night in the middle of January on TNT.
That's the worst TNT game all year. I can't wait for Chuck on that one.
I can't. That can't be good, right? That. Why is my question?
Is it in Washington?
It is in Washington.
At Kevin Durant homecoming. Like,
can I give you a list of the other games happening that night?
Yeah.
So you got Indiana at Detroit. No.
All right, that's nothing.
Phoenix at Washington.
Okay.
The Malice at the Palace. You actually could with Indiana Detroit. Could you do like a whatever 21st year anniversary, however long ago it was, of that, and just sell it around that? Phoenix at Washington is the TNT game. Cleveland at Oklahoma City. That's a good game.
That is a good game.
Clippers at Portland. No, not so much. And then Houston at Sacramento is the late TNT game. So Cleveland at Oklahoma City with an 8 p.m. tip.
What's the date? That's a Thursday?
It's Thursday, January 16th.
I'm off that Friday show, Wes. Just I have something that night, so
we're gonna get the subs that one. Let's get the subs.
Just go ahead and put that one in your calendar.
Yeah, Nick, I hope you heard that. All right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Everydayers, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.